At my sister's bridal shower, I was treated like hired help. While everyone laughed and celebrated, I carried trays, refilled glasses, and cleaned up messes. But when her fiancé pulled me aside into the empty hallway, his face pale and hands trembling, he whispered 6 words that made my blood run cold. "She's been lying about everything." What he told me next didn't just destroy my sister's perfect day, it unraveled a web of deception so twisted, it would shatter our entire family and expose a criminal operation that had been running for years. My name is Emma, and I'm 28 years old. My sister Rachel is 32, and for as long as I can remember, she's been the golden child. Our parents worship the ground she walks on. Every achievement I ever had was overshadowed by whatever Rachel did that week. I graduated college with honors. Rachel got promoted. I bought my first car. Rachel got engaged. Our mother always said Rachel just had that special something, that magnetic quality that made people gravitate toward her. What Mom didn't see, or chose not to see, was how Rachel used that charm like a weapon. Growing up, Rachel would steal my clothes and deny it even when I found them in her closet with the tags I'd written my initials on still attached. She'd use my makeup, break my things, and somehow I'd end up apologizing to keep the peace. When boys I liked showed interest, Rachel would suddenly become fascinated by them too. And she always won. I remember one particular incident when I was 16. There was this boy, Jake Matthews, who sat behind me in chemistry class. He'd asked me to homecoming, and I was thrilled. It was my first real date. I told Rachel about it at dinner, excited and nervous. 2 days later, Jake canceled on me. Said something came up. That weekend, I saw photos on social media of Jake and Rachel at the movies together. When I confronted her, she just shrugged and said, "He obviously liked me better. Don't be such a baby about it." Mom told me I was overreacting. Dad said boys would come and go, but sisters were forever. That became the pattern. Rachel would take, I would lose, and our parents would tell me to be the bigger person. By the time we were adults, I'd learned to keep my distance. I built my own life, working as a financial analyst at a mid-sized firm in Charlotte, North Carolina. I had my own apartment in a decent neighborhood, my own friends who actually valued me, my own world where Rachel's shadow couldn't reach me. I'd see her at holidays and family dinners, play nice, and then go back to my life. It wasn't ideal, but it was survivable. Then came David. Rachel started dating him 2 years ago, and from day one, our parents acted like she'd won the lottery. David was handsome, successful, charming, a real estate developer with his own company. He drove a Mercedes, wore expensive suits, and always knew exactly what to say to make people feel special. Mom gushed about him constantly. Finally, Rachel's found a man who deserves her, she'd say, as if the problem with Rachel's previous relationships had been the men, not Rachel herself. Dad kept talking about David's business acumen, his investments, his connections. That boy's going places. Rachel secured her future. They got engaged after 18 months, and suddenly every family gathering became a wedding planning session. Mom would spend hours showing me fabric swatches and invitation designs I had no input on. Rachel would talk endlessly about her dress, the venue, the honeymoon in Bali. I'll admit, I was skeptical. Not jealous, skeptical. Something about David felt rehearsed, like he was playing a role. But then again, everyone Rachel dated seemed to put on a performance around her. She had that effect on people. Every time I saw them together, Rachel seemed genuinely happy. She'd gaze at David with this soft expression I'd never seen on her face before. And David seemed devoted to her, always touching her hand, bringing her flowers, surprising her with weekend getaways. So I pushed my doubts aside and tried to be supportive. Maybe Rachel had actually changed. Maybe she'd found someone who brought out her better nature. I was so wrong. The shower was at Mom's house, a beautiful colonial in the suburbs with a sprawling backyard and perfectly manicured gardens. Mom had spent weeks preparing, transforming every room into something out of a wedding magazine. white and blush pink everywhere. Roses and peonies in crystal vases. String lights wound through the pergola in the backyard. A dessert table that probably cost more than my monthly rent, covered with custom macarons, a 3-tier cake, chocolate truffles shaped like wedding bells. 30 women were invited. Rachel's friends from college, our aunts, cousins, mom's book club friends, Rachel's colleagues from the marketing firm she supposedly worked at. Everyone dressed in their Sunday best, sipping mimosas and champagne from fancy flutes. I arrived early to help set up, like Mom had asked. She'd called me 3 days before. "Emma, sweetheart, I'm going to need your help getting everything ready. You know how important this day is for Rachel. I want it to be perfect." Of course she did. I showed up at 8 in the morning. Mom already had lists prepared, color-coded lists with tasks assigned by priority. Okay, so first we need to arrange the favor bags. Each bag needs a personalized tag with the guest's name. Then the floral centerpieces need to be placed on every table. The caterers arrive at 10, so we need the kitchen cleared and ready. Oh, and can you set up the gift table? I want it to look elegant, not cluttered. But help quickly became do everything. Emma, can you iron the tablecloths? There are wrinkles. Emma, the bathroom needs fresh hand towels and those little soaps I bought. Emma, can you run to the store? We're short on champagne. Emma. I spent 3 hours running around like my hair was on fire while Mom directed me like I was her personal assistant. Rachel showed up at 11, right when guests were starting to arrive, looking gorgeous in a white sundress and perfect makeup. "Oh good, you're here." Mom rushed to hug her. "Everything looks beautiful, doesn't it? Come on, let's get you some champagne before everyone gets here." Not a single acknowledgement of the work I'd done. Not a thank you. Nothing. When guests started arriving, I assumed I'd finally get to relax and enjoy the party like everyone else. Instead, Mom pulled me aside into the kitchen. "Sweetheart, would you mind playing hostess? Just make sure everyone's drinks are full. The food is replenished, you know. Rachel shouldn't have to worry about anything today. She needs to just enjoy herself and soak it all in." It wasn't a request. It was an order wrapped in false sweetness and the expectation that I'd never say no. So while Rachel held court in the living room, surrounded by friends and family, opening gifts and posing for photos, I worked. I carried trays of appetizers through the crowd. Bacon-wrapped dates. Bruschetta. Those little crab puffs that kept selling out. I refilled champagne flutes and mimosa glasses. I cleaned up dropped napkins and spilled drinks. I ran back and forth to the kitchen so many times I lost count. The worst part wasn't the physical work. It was the invisibility. Not once did anyone say thank you. Not Mom, not Rachel, not any of the guests who looked right through me like I was actually hired staff. They'd take food from my tray without even making eye contact. They'd hand me their dirty plates without a word. I heard Rachel's friend Melissa say to someone, "The service here is excellent," while I stood 3 feet away refilling her glass. Around the 3rd hour, I was in the kitchen loading dirty dishes into the dishwasher, my hands raw from hot water and soap, when I heard heels clicking across the tile floor. My Aunt Linda appeared, wine glass in hand, cheeks flushed from alcohol. "Emma, honey, Rachel's looking for more of those little crab puffs. Can you bring them out? Everyone's raving about them." I straightened up, my back aching from bending over. "Sure, Aunt Linda. Just let me and when you get a chance, the bathroom trash is full." Someone threw a whole pile of tissues in there. "You're such a dear for helping out today." She patted my shoulder like I was a faithful dog and swept back out to rejoin the party. I stood there, hands covered in soap suds, fighting back angry tears. This was humiliating. I wasn't a guest at my own sister's bridal shower, I was the help. The servant. The invisible worker be making sure everyone else had a good time. Part of me wanted to walk out. To throw down my apron, I was literally wearing an apron Mom had given me, and leave them all to fend for themselves. But I knew what would happen. Mom would be disappointed. Rachel would say I was being dramatic. Dad would give me that look of quiet disapproval that always made me feel like I was 5 years old again. So I swallowed my pride, dried my hands, and grabbed the tray of fresh crab puffs from the oven. As I pushed through the kitchen door back into the living room, balancing the hot tray carefully, I nearly collided with someone standing just outside. David. He was there just outside the kitchen, away from the main party, his phone in his hand. When he saw me, he quickly pocketed it, but not before I saw his hands were shaking. Emma. His voice was tight, strained. Can I talk to you? Privately? Something in his expression stopped me cold. David's usual confident smile was gone. The easy charm he always radiated had vanished. He looked stressed, no, more than stressed. He looked terrified. His face was pale. There were dark circles under his eyes like he hadn't slept. His hair, usually perfectly styled, was slightly messed up, like he'd been running his hands through it repeatedly. Sure, but I need to bring these out first. Now, please. His eyes started toward the living room where Rachel's laughter rang out above the chatter. Before anyone notices I'm talking to you. Before Rachel sees. The urgency in his voice sent a chill through me. I set the tray on the hallway table and followed him upstairs to the guest room at the end of the hall. He closed the door behind us and immediately locked it. David, what's going on? You look. She's been lying about everything. The words came out in a rush, like he'd been holding them in for days. Everything, Emma. The wedding, her job, her money, her past, all of it. It's all been a lie. I stared at him, confusion swirling in my head. What are you talking about? He ran both hands through his perfectly styled hair, completely messing it up this time. I need to show you something. But you have to promise you won't tell Rachel I told you. Not yet. Not until I figure out what to do. I don't even know who to trust anymore, but I thought, you seem different from the rest of your family. More grounded. David, you're scaring me. He pulled out his phone with shaking hands and opened his email app. 3 days ago, I got a call from my bank. My business bank. There was suspicious activity on my account. Someone had been making transfers I didn't authorize. He turned the phone toward me. I saw a bank statement with multiple transactions highlighted in yellow. Thousands of dollars. Tens of thousands. All of these went into an account I'd never seen before. I called my bank manager immediately, had him trace it. Emma, he looked at me with hollow, devastated eyes. The account belongs to Rachel. My mouth went dry. That's not possible. Rachel would never. There's more. He swiped to another email, his finger trembling on the screen. I hired a private investigator. Just a basic background check to see if maybe someone had stolen her identity, used her name for fraud. I was trying to give her the benefit of the doubt. But what he found? He handed me the phone. I scrolled through the report, my hands beginning to shake as I read. Rachel hadn't worked at the marketing firm she claimed to work at for the past 8 months. She'd been fired for falsifying expense reports and trying to use the company credit card for personal purchases. The girls' weekends she'd taken over the past year, trips to Miami, New York, Vegas, all funded by credit cards in David's name that she'd opened without his knowledge. Cards he'd never seen, never signed for. She'd racked up over $40,000 in debt on those cards alone. The wedding fund her parents thought she'd been diligently contributing to from her salary, money she'd stolen directly from David's business accounts, transferred in small amounts over months, so he wouldn't notice right away. But the worst part, the part that made my stomach turn and my hands go numb, was the final page of the report. Rachel was already married. She'd married a man named Marcus Chin 4 years ago in Las Vegas. According to the report, they'd never divorced. The marriage license was right there in black and white, along with a photo of Rachel and Marcus on their wedding day, both looking happy and legitimate. Oh my God. My voice came out as a whisper. David, this means our wedding is illegal. She's been committing fraud, financial fraud, identity theft, bigamy. Everything she's told me, everything she's told your parents, her friends, it's all been a lie. He sank down onto the edge of the bed, his head in his hands. I loved her, Emma. I was going to spend my life with her. I trusted her with my business accounts, my passwords, everything. And she's been scamming me this entire time. I couldn't speak. I just stared at the report on his phone, reading it again and again, trying to make sense of it. There's even more, David said, his voice breaking. The investigator found that Marcus, her husband, he's been in contact with her this whole time. They've been texting, emailing. He sent me screenshots. They've been planning this together. He took the phone back and showed me message threads. Rachel and Marcus discussing the target, David, talking about how much longer they could string him along, coordinating transfers to offshore accounts. One message from Marcus made bile rise in my throat. 2 more months and we'll have enough to disappear for good. Keep him distracted. You're doing great, babe. Rachel's response. He's so easy to manipulate. I almost feel bad. Almost. Face with tears of joy. Jesus Christ, I whispered. She's done this before. David's voice was hollow now, emotionless, like he'd cried all his tears already. The investigator found 2 other men. Similar pattern. Rachel seduces them. Marcus stays in the background coordinating. They drain bank accounts, open fraudulent credit lines, steal everything they can, then disappear before anyone catches on. I was just victim number 3. The biggest score. We sat in that guest room for 30 minutes while David showed me everything. Every bank statement. Every credit card bill. Every message between Rachel and Marcus. The investigator's full report, which was 40 pages long and detailed a pattern of fraud going back at least 5 years. There were photos of Rachel with the previous victims. A businessman named Gregory from Texas. She'd taken him for $70,000. A dentist named Paul from Colorado, $65,000. What are you going to do? I finally asked, my voice shaky. I don't know. He looked utterly broken, like someone had reached inside him and removed something vital. If I call off the wedding publicly, she'll know I found out. My lawyer says I need to document everything, get evidence of what she's done, secure my accounts before I confront her. But the wedding is in 3 weeks, Emma. Your parents have spent so much money. They've invited 200 people. The venue, the catering, the band. Money they'll lose anyway when this comes out. And it will come out. He nodded miserably. I know. I wanted to tell someone in her family first. I thought maybe you'd know if there were signs, if she'd done something like this before, if there was any explanation that didn't make her a complete monster. She hasn't. At least not that I know of. But even as I said it, memories flooded back. All those times Rachel had borrowed money from our parents and never paid it back. The time in college when she opened a credit card using our mother's information and maxed it out before Mom discovered it. The way she always seemed to have more money than her job should provide, always wore expensive clothes, always went on lavish trips. Maybe the signs had been there all along. We just hadn't wanted to see them. Or I hadn't been important enough for anyone to listen to my concerns. You need to tell my parents, I said, my voice stronger now. Today. Right now. As soon as this shower ends. David's face went white. Emma, I can't just. Yes, you can. And you have to. Because in 3 weeks, you're supposed to marry my sister in front of 200 people at a venue my parents paid $30,000 to book. They've hired a photographer, a videographer, a band. They've ordered flowers and a cake and custom favors. If you wait and this all comes out later, it's going to be so much worse. For everyone. He knew I was right. I could see it in his eyes, the resignation settling in. Will you? He swallowed hard. Will you be there when I tell them? I don't think I can do it alone. And I think it'll mean more coming from both of us. They might not believe me if it's just me. They might think I'm the one lying. I thought about going back downstairs, serving more food, watching Rachel smile and laugh and accept congratulations while I knew the truth. While I carried the weight of her lies and his heartbreak. I thought about all the years I'd stayed quiet. All the times I'd swallowed my feelings to keep the peace. Yes, I said. I'll be there. We agreed to wait until the shower was over and all the guests had left. It was torture, walking back downstairs with this knowledge burning in my chest like acid. I picked up my serving duties again. I brought out more food, refilled more glasses, cleaned more messes. But now every time I looked at Rachel, I saw the mask. I saw the calculation in her smile, the performance in her laughter, the con artist behind the loving fiancé act. Rachel caught my eye once across the room and gave me a little wave, her fingers wiggling. Thanks for all your help today, Em. You're the best little sister anyone could ask for. I wanted to throw the champagne bottle at her head. Around 4 o'clock, guests started leaving. The gift opening had finished. The cake had been cut. Everyone was full and tipsy and happy. I watched them hug Rachel, congratulate her, tell her how lucky she was. She accepted it all with grace and false humility. I'm the lucky one, she kept saying. David is everything I ever dreamed of. Finally, mercifully, the last guest left. It was just our family, Mom, Dad, Rachel, David, and me. We were in the living room surrounded by piles of opened gifts and crumpled wrapping paper. The remnants of a celebration that was about to turn into a funeral. Mom was pouring herself another glass of champagne, already drunk and happy. What a perfect day. Rachel, honey, I think everyone had such a lovely time. And David, wasn't Emma just wonderful helping out? I don't know what we would have done without her. She was amazing. David stood up from the couch, his jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscle jumping. Mr. and Mrs. Morrison, there's something I need to tell you. All of you. It's about Rachel. And it can't wait any longer. The room went still. The happiness drained out like someone had pulled a plug. Rachel's smile faded. Her eyes narrowed slightly. David, what are you? Shut up. His voice was cold, sharper than I'd ever heard it. You don't get to talk right now. You don't get to lie anymore. Mom gasped, her hand flying to her chest. David, what on earth has gotten into you? Your daughter is a liar and a fraud. He pulled out his phone and the manila folder he'd hidden behind the couch earlier. She's been stealing from me for 2 years. She's been lying about her job, her money, her entire life. And she's already married to someone else. For a moment, no one moved. No one breathed. The silence was so complete I could hear the antique clock ticking on the mantel. Then Dad stood up slowly, his face darkening. Son, I think you need to. Look at this. David threw the folder onto the coffee table with such force that papers scattered across the surface, sliding onto the floor. Bank statements showing she transferred over $60,000 from my business accounts. Credit card bills for cards she opened in my name without my knowledge or permission. And her marriage license to Marcus Chin, dated October 15th, for years ago. Tell me, Rachel, when exactly were you planning to divorce your husband before our wedding? Or were you just going to commit bigamy and hope nobody noticed? Rachel's face had gone from pink to white to a sickly gray color. She stared at the papers scattered on the table like they were venomous snakes ready to strike. Mom snatched up the closest document. It happened to be the marriage license. Her hands trembled so badly she could barely hold it steady enough to read. Her lips moved silently as she processed the words. You don't understand. Rachel's voice was small, nothing like her usual confident tone. I understand perfectly. David's voice shook with barely controlled rage. You saw me as a meal ticket. A target. You wormed your way into my life with lies and manipulation. You got access to my business, my accounts, my passwords, my trust. And you've been robbing me blind for 2 years while playing the role of loving girlfriend, then loving fiancé. No, David, that's not. Don't. He held up a hand. Don't you dare lie anymore. I have screenshots of your messages with Marcus. Your husband. The man you've been coordinating this whole scam with. Do you want me to read them out loud? The ones where you call me easy to manipulate? Where you laugh about how stupid I am for trusting you? Rachel's eyes went wide. True fear flashed across her face. Mom was still reading the marriage license, tears streaming down her face now. Rachel, this can't be real. Tell me this isn't real. Tell me this is some kind of mistake. Mom, I can explain. She can't explain. I stood up, my own voice steadier than I expected. My heart was pounding, but I'd been silent for too long. Because there's no explanation that makes this okay. She's been lying to everyone in this room. Using David, using you and Dad, using all of us as cover for her criminal operation. Rachel's eyes snapped to me, and for the first time in my life, I saw the mask completely slip away. The sweet, perfect daughter disappeared. The loving sister vanished. What was underneath was cold, calculating, and utterly devoid of the warmth she'd always performed. You. Her voice dripped with venom and pure hatred. You couldn't stand that I found someone better than you ever could you? You've always been jealous of me. Always wanted what I had. This is you trying to ruin my happiness because you're miserable. Don't you dare. I took a step toward her, surprised by the steadiness in my legs. I have never been jealous of you, Rachel. I've pitied you. Because I knew someday your lies would catch up with you. Someday you'd push too far, take too much, hurt too many people. And guess what? Today's that day. Dad had picked up the bank statements. He was reading through them, his face growing redder with each page, his breathing becoming heavier. Rachel Elizabeth Morrison, what the hell have you done? Daddy, please, just listen. $60,000. His voice cracked with emotion. You stole $60,000 from this man. We paid for the venue. We paid for the catering, the photographer, the band, the flowers. We've spent $30,000 on this wedding. His voice rose to a shout. And you were going to let us do it? Let us host a wedding that wasn't even legal? That would make us all accomplices to bigamy. I was going to fix it. Rachel's voice rose to a shriek, desperate and panicked. I was going to divorce Marcus before the wedding. I just needed a little more time to work it out. You've had 4 years. David shouted back. You've been with me for 2 of those years, and you never once mentioned you were married to someone else. Not once. Every time I talked about our future, our wedding, spending our lives together, you just smiled and lied. Because I knew you wouldn't understand. Tears streamed down Rachel's face now, but they looked theatrical, performed. Like everything else about her. Marcus was a mistake. I was young and stupid, and I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't want it to ruin what we had. What we have. I love you, David. You don't love anyone but yourself. David's voice dropped to a deadly quiet that was somehow more frightening than the shouting. Every moment we spent together was based on lies. Every conversation. Every kiss. Every time you said you loved me. All of it was part of a con. I was just a mark to you. He pulled out his phone again and scrolled to something. Do you want me to read your messages to Marcus? The ones from last week? Here's a good one. David just gave me access to his investment accounts. The idiot actually thinks I'm helping him organize his finances. This is going to be so easy. Should I read more? Rachel's face crumpled. She reached for him. Please don't. Or how about this one? 2 more months and we'll have enough to disappear. I'm almost going to miss how gullible he is. Almost. You sent that 6 days ago, Rachel. 6 days before your bridal shower. While I was planning our honeymoon and thinking about spending my life with you. Get out. Mom's voice cut through the chaos. It was quiet, cold, completely unlike her usual warmth. Everyone turned to look at her. Rachel's face went slack with shock. What? Get out of my house. Mom set down her champagne glass with a shaking hand. Right now. Mom, please. I can't look at you. Mom's voice broke. I don't even know who you are. The person standing in front of me is a stranger. A criminal. My daughter wouldn't do this. My daughter wouldn't steal and lie and destroy people's lives for money. I'm still your daughter. No, Mom shook her head, tears running down her face, ruining her makeup. My daughter wouldn't look me in the eye every Sunday dinner and lie. Wouldn't let me spend my retirement savings on a wedding that was never going to happen. Wouldn't break a good man's heart as part of some sick game. I don't know who you are, but you're not the person I raised. I'd never heard my mother talk like that. Never heard that coldness, that finality in her voice. It was like watching her heart break in real time. Dad was still holding the bank statements, his hands shaking. How could you do this to us? To your family? I didn't do anything to you. You made us accessories. Dad's voice thundered through the room. Do you understand that? When this goes to the police, and it will go to the police, we're going to have to prove we didn't know. We're going to have to explain to investigators, maybe even testify in court, that our own daughter was running a con and we were too blind to see it. It's not like that. Then what is it like? Dad threw the papers down. Explain it to me, Rachel. Explain how this is anything other than you being a thief and a liar. Rachel looked around the room desperately, searching for someone, anyone to take her side. Mom stood frozen, arms wrapped around herself. Dad wouldn't look at her directly. David stood rigid, his face carved from stone. And I crossed my arms and said nothing, refusing to offer her any lifeline. This is your fault. Rachel turned on me suddenly, her voice sharp with rage. You did this. You poisoned them against me. You couldn't stand seeing me happy, so you ruined everything. I didn't have to do anything, I said calmly, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. You did this to yourself. You made every choice that led to this moment. And now you have to face the consequences. I hate you. The words came out as a hiss. I have always hated you. You've always been in my way, always judging me, always thinking you're better than me. Get out, David said again. Now. Before I call the police right here and have you arrested in front of your parents. Rachel stared at him, mascara running down her face in black streams. You wouldn't. Try me. His eyes were cold. I'm filing for restitution tomorrow morning. I'm pressing charges for fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. And if you don't return every penny you stole, I'm going to make sure you spend the next decade in prison. The only reason you're not in handcuffs right now is because I wanted your parents to hear the truth from me first. But that courtesy ends in about 60 seconds. Rachel stood there for another moment, her chest heaving, her hands clenched into fists. Then she grabbed her purse from the couch, turned, and ran out of the house. The front door slammed behind her so hard that one of Mom's decorative plates fell off the wall in the hallway and shattered. The silence that followed was suffocating, broken only by Mom's quiet crying. David left about 20 minutes later, after answering my parents' questions and promising to send them copies of everything the investigator had found. He thanked them for their hospitality over the past 2 years and apologized repeatedly for the mess. At the door, he shook my hand. His palm was cold and clammy. Thank you, he said quietly, his voice hoarse from shouting. For being honest. For helping me tell them. I don't think I could have done it alone. I'm sorry this happened to you, I said. You didn't deserve any of it. Neither did you. He glanced back at the house, at the bridal shower decorations still hanging everywhere like ghosts of a celebration. I really did love her, you know. Or who I thought she was. The person she pretended to be. I know. Was any of it real? He looked at me with hollow eyes. Did she ever actually care about me at all? Or was I just a paycheck from day one? I wanted to give him comfort. To tell him that surely some part of Rachel had developed genuine feelings for him. But I couldn't lie. I don't know, I said honestly. I don't think Rachel knows how to care about anyone but herself. He nodded slowly, accepting the painful truth. Then he walked to his car and drove away. After he left, I helped Mom and Dad clean up. We worked mostly in silence, taking down decorations that had been hung with joy just hours earlier. It felt surreal, dismantling what was supposed to be a celebration. Everything was a reminder. The custom napkins with Rachel and David printed on them. The photo props for the Instagram backdrop. The guest book where people had written congratulations and marriage advice. All of it garbage now. Around midnight, Dad finally spoke as we were loading trash bags into bins outside. How did we not see it? His voice was rough-edged. How did we miss all the signs? There had to have been signs. She's good at hiding, I said, tying off a bag. She always has been. And she knew exactly how to play to your expectations of her. That's not an excuse. He straightened up, wincing at the pain in his back. We're her parents. We should have known. We should have questioned things more. Should have asked harder questions when things didn't add up. Mom emerged from the house carrying another bag, her face puffy and red from crying. She'd been crying on and off for hours. I failed you. She looked at me with devastated eyes. I made you serve everyone today like you were staff. I didn't even thank you properly. I never thank you properly. And all while your sister was, she couldn't finish the sentence. Mom. No, let me say this. She set down the bag and took my hands in hers. I have always put Rachel first. Always made excuses for her behavior. Always brushed aside your concerns because I didn't want to see the truth. I made you invisible in your own family because Rachel was easier to love. She was charming and magnetic, and she made me feel like a successful mother. But you're the one with actual integrity. Actual character. And I overlooked that because it wasn't as shiny. Tears spilled down my cheeks. I'd waited my whole life to hear something like that from her. I'm so sorry, Emma. For everything. For today, for your childhood, for all of it. It's not your fault Rachel turned out this way. Yes, it is. At least partially. Mom's voice was firm. I enabled her. I made it okay for her to treat people badly because I always smoothed things over. I taught her that charm and appearance mattered more than honesty and kindness. And now look what she's become. Dad joined us, putting his arms around both of us. We stood there in the driveway, surrounded by bags of party trash, holding each other while our family fell apart. The next few weeks were absolutely brutal. Mom and Dad had to call everyone and cancel the wedding. Mom spent days on the phone, making excuse after excuse, not telling people the real reason because she was too ashamed. They lost deposits on almost everything. The venue kept their $15,000 deposit. The caterer kept $5,000. The florist kept $3,000. The band, the photographer, the videographer, all kept their deposits. The only vendor kind enough to refund them completely was the cake maker, a sweet woman who said she couldn't take money for a wedding that wasn't happening. In total, they lost about $28,000. David's lawyer sent Rachel a formal demand letter for the return of all stolen funds. When she didn't respond for a week, he filed a civil suit against her and reported her to the police for fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit fraud. Rachel went into hiding. She moved out of her apartment overnight, leaving no forwarding address. She stopped answering calls, texts, emails. Even Mom and Dad couldn't reach her. But David's investigator tracked her down to a cheap motel outside the city. She was arrested there 3 days later, along with Marcus Chin. The police investigation into her activities revealed even more than David's private investigator had found. She'd opened credit cards in David's name going back to almost the beginning of their relationship, not just recently. She'd forged his signature on documents, created fake contracts with his company letterhead, and pocketed deposits from clients who thought they were working with David's business. She'd done the same thing to the 2 previous victims the investigator had found, Gregory in Texas and Paul in Colorado. Both men came forward when they heard about Rachel's arrest. Both had been too embarrassed to report the fraud at the time. In total, across all 3 victims, Rachel and Marcus had stolen over $230,000. But the investigation uncovered something even worse. Rachel and Marcus had been running this con for longer than anyone realized. The investigator found evidence of at least 2 more victims before Gregory and Paul, men who either hadn't realized they'd been scammed or had been too ashamed to come forward. This had been Rachel's career. Her actual job. She and Marcus had been doing this for at least 6 years, possibly longer. Every relationship she'd claimed to have during her 20s. Every boyfriend she'd brought home to meet the family. All of it had been part of the con. I felt sick when I learned that. Sick for the victims, sick for my parents, sick that I'd grown up with someone capable of such calculated cruelty. How did I not see it? I asked my therapist during one session. How did I live with her for 18 years and not know she was capable of this? Because she didn't want you to see it, my therapist said gently. People like Rachel are experts at compartmentalization. They show different faces to different people. The sister you knew was probably real, in its own way. It just wasn't the whole truth. The prosecutors offered Rachel a plea deal. 7 years in prison if she pled guilty to all charges and agreed to pay full restitution to all victims. She refused. She insisted she was innocent, that David and the other men were lying, that it was all a misunderstanding. So they went to trial. It's been 6 months since the bridal shower that ended in disaster, and the trial concluded last week. Rachel was found guilty on all counts: fraud, identity theft, conspiracy, grand larceny, forgery. The list went on and on. Marcus was convicted as well, on similar charges plus additional counts for his role as the coordinator. Rachel was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Marcus got 12 because of prior convictions. I attended the sentencing. So did Mom and Dad, though it nearly broke them to do it. Rachel stood in front of the judge in an orange jumpsuit, her hair pulled back, no makeup, looking nothing like the polished woman who'd held court at her bridal shower. She cried and apologized and begged for leniency. The judge wasn't moved. You have demonstrated a pattern of predatory behavior targeting vulnerable individuals who trusted you, the judge said. You have shown no genuine remorse, only regret at being caught. The harm you've caused is not merely financial. You've damaged these people's ability to trust, to form relationships, to feel safe. That harm is immeasurable. Rachel was led away in handcuffs. She looked at our parents one last time before disappearing through the door. Mom sobbed. Dad sat stone-faced, his jaw clenched. The prosecutors managed to recover about $120,000 from various accounts Rachel and Marcus had hidden money in. It's being divided among the victims. David will get back about half of what was stolen from him. The others will get partial restitution. The rest is gone, probably spent or hidden somewhere they'll never find. My parents are still in therapy, both individual and couples counseling. They're trying to process how they raised someone capable of such things. How they missed the signs for so many years. Mom has apologized to me probably 100 times. For the bridal shower, for my childhood, for always putting Rachel first, for making me feel invisible. I've forgiven her. Truly. It's a process, rebuilding our relationship, but we're trying. We have dinner once a week now, just the two of us. She asks about my life, my job, my friends. She actually listens. Dad has been helping David navigate the financial recovery process. They've actually become friends through this nightmare. Dad says helping David is his way of atoning for raising Rachel. David is doing better, slowly. He sold his Mercedes, too many memories of Rachel in that car. He moved to a smaller house, downsized his business to reduce stress. He's in therapy too, working through the trauma and trust issues. We still get coffee sometimes, David and I. Not romantically, neither of us wants that. We're both too damaged by Rachel in different ways. But he says it helps to talk to someone who understands what she was capable of. Someone who saw both sides of her. As for me, I got a promotion at work 3 months ago. Senior financial analyst with a significant raise. I'm seeing someone, a kind, honest guy named Tom who makes me laugh and has never lied to me about anything, even the small stuff. On our 3rd date, I told him everything about Rachel. I figured if he was going to run, better he do it early. But he just listened, held my hand, and said, "That must have been incredibly painful. I'm sorry you went through that." He didn't judge me for my sister's crimes. Didn't assume I was anything like her. Just saw me as my own person. That meant more than he'll ever know. My apartment is decorated now with photos from family dinners where I'm actually part of the conversation. Where Mom and Dad ask me about my life and care about the answers. Where I'm not invisible anymore. I think about that bridal shower sometimes, especially on hard days. about how humiliated I felt carrying trays and cleaning up messes while everyone celebrated Rachel, about how small and insignificant I felt in my own family. And then I remember standing in that guest room with David, looking at evidence of my sister's crimes and making the choice to face the truth instead of protecting comfortable lies. If David hadn't pulled me aside that day, if he hadn't trusted me enough to tell me everything, how much longer would Rachel's con have continued? How much more would David have lost? How many more victims would there have been? Sometimes I wonder if I should feel guilty. If I should feel bad for helping expose my own sister, for contributing to her ending up in prison. But I don't. Not anymore. Looking back now, I see that my entire childhood was preparing me for that moment in the guest room. Every time Rachel lied and I stayed quiet to keep the peace. Every time I let her take credit for my work or steal my things or manipulate situations. Every time I served while she was served. I was taught to be invisible, to not make waves, to let Rachel shine no matter the cost to myself or others. But that day, the day of her bridal shower, surrounded by decorations and champagne and fake celebration, I chose differently. I chose to face the truth, even when it was ugly, even when it hurt, even when it meant destroying the fantasy my family had built around Rachel for 3 decades. And you know what I learned? The truth doesn't destroy families. Lies do. The truth doesn't break people. Pretending does. Rachel didn't fall because I helped David expose her. She fell because she built her entire existence on a foundation of deception and manipulation. And eventually, all lies collapse under their own weight. It's not a question of if, but when. I was just there when the collapse happened. When the carefully constructed facade finally crumbled and revealed the rot underneath. The prosecutors told me that David wasn't the last in line. They found evidence that Rachel and Marcus were already targeting their next victim, a widower in his 50s who Rachel had started talking to online. If she hadn't been caught, she would have moved on from David to him, draining his accounts while he grieved his dead wife. By exposing Rachel when I did, by choosing truth over comfortable lies, I may have saved that man from being victimized. Saved others down the line. That's what I tell myself on the days when I wonder if I did the right thing. When I think about Rachel in prison and my parents' broken hearts. I did the right thing. Even when it was hard. Even when it hurt. And I'm not sorry. Not for exposing her. Not for standing with David. Not for finally refusing to be invisible. For the first time in my life, I chose honesty over peacekeeping. I chose protection of the innocent over protection of my family's image. And while the fallout was devastating, while my family will never be the same, at least now we're building something real. Something based on truth instead of carefully maintained illusions. That's worth more than 1,000 perfect bridal showers. If this story resonated with you, or if you've dealt with family betrayal, toxic relationships, or the painful choice between truth and keeping the peace, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever discovered that someone you loved was lying about everything? How did you handle it? Did you expose them or stay silent? And if you enjoyed this story, please hit the like button and subscribe for more real-life drama, revenge stories, and tales of justice finally being served. Because trust me, there's a lot more where this came from. Thanks for listening to my story. I'll see you in the next one.